Implementing AI is not a pass-fail grade. Where I've seen the most repeatable success is where you bring in that subject matter expert, the key influential person on the team early. This is going to require a lot of companies to have a culture shift. It's going to be climbing Everest if you don't have the culture to support it.
I feel like that's something that I've seen you guys do incredibly well.
Welcome to StitchStudio's Pilot to Production. In this series, we're interviewing insurance executives, investors, and consultants to hear real stories of how the industry is operationalizing AI in insurance. From carriers and brokerages to technology partners and investors, you'll gain practical insights, implementation strategies, and lessons learned from the leaders driving enterprise-scale adoption, moving from pilots to implementing responsible, predictable, and explainable AI. I'm Karan Mishra, CEO of StitchStudio, and this is Pilot to Production.
Thank you so much for coming here, Amber. Super excited to be having this conversation because I feel like you're one of those people that perfectly intersect the three important elements of the technology wave we're going through, like the business, the IT, and the AI. You're right in the center of it. So I'm really excited to hear your perspectives and sort of have this conversation. So I'll start with a quick introduction. I'll let you do a quick introduction so you can give you background, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I'm super excited to chat with you about all of this. My role as a lead solutions advisor at M3 is all three of those things, right? Like I'm in our IT team, but I work very closely with the business on how we're developing our technology, how we're leveraging our tech stack. I've been there 5 years doing that, and prior was just a tech nerd with an English degree doing a variety of other jobs. So I got to see a lot of different facets of the industry.
Yeah. I find it fascinating because most people who come from outside of the specialization of like doing just tech seem to be the most successful in actually doing tech in the industry we operate in, because I feel like it's a different perspective you bring in, right? It's not just technology for the technology's sake, which is interesting. I kind of want to start the conversation with, when people think about AI, what most people get stuck in the technology of it, right? And I want to start level up a bit. I can see from an organization perspective, there is a change management element that comes with everything that we do. And working with you, it seems like you sort of specialize in that area, right? So I wanted to get your thoughts on, because most of the industry still is in perpetual pilot mode, right? Like you guys seems to have broken that mold a bit, right? So what is the one thing that came to you as like, hey, most people are not doing this part right? As an industry, we're struggling with this. What is that, do you think?
I think specifically talking about AI, it's identifying why you're doing what you're doing. I think there is a tendency right now, because it's so popular, that it's like, well, everyone is doing this. We have to do AI. So the directive then that comes down to every team is do AI. Do it now and do a lot of it really fast. And it's like, well, for what? But what is the core problem? What's the core opportunity? And thinking through not just that we have to do something, but making sure you're moving in the right direction, which is, talk about perpetual pilot mode. And I absolutely love that turn of phrase, and I'm going to steal it. Perpetual pilot mode is when you're continually looking for a direction. Like a pilot is supposed to tell you you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
But if you don't actually know what you're trying to get to, then you're just continuing to pilot, because you're going to eventually decide where you want to go. So you're just like in a sprint forever, rather than sprinting, being like, yep, this is taking me the right direction. Now let's pull it back to like that marathon pace where it's sustainable and gets us to our destination.
That's a great point. I like that. I like the directionality that comes with the pilot. Yeah, that's being a symptom, not the actual problem.
Really what you're trying to do with a pilot or proof of concept, whatever you want to call it, is it's an experiment. You have a hypothesis and you want to test it and validate it to let you know, yep, validated all the assumptions. This is what we're doing. Or nope, we need to go back and throw in a different variable, tweak something, figure out what we need to do next.
I like that. And so I always get fascinated with like the new waves of technology, right? So every time there's a new wave of technology, especially from an organization's perspective, I always tell my team this is like every organization has like the immune system, right? Like it fights change really hard. We are developers, like, I work with a bunch of engineers, and I see this all the time, right? Like where we are preaching AI, even for us, using AI tools is a significant change, and they resist it, right? So how do you think about, like, because part of it comes from a place of fear because there's a threat associated with it. I don't necessarily buy into that argument, but the prevalent, the talk track has been that AI is going to replace people. There is a threat, but everyone who's worked with it so far know that it's an enabler, not a disruptor. And you have to be an enabler in order to actually buy into the organization. So I wanted you to talk about, how do you think about it? Because gone through a few of these, you seem to have navigated that quite well. So I'm curious to hear your point of view on that one.
Yeah, and absolutely, I see the same thing where, and it's in line with just how we're wired as human beings, right? Change equals disruption equals threat, and really it's like, I see a new snake on the ground, I'm going to assume it's poisonous and run in the other direction as fast as I can.
Yep, that's me.
In the modern world, though, it's trying to teach people how to reframe that initial reaction into, okay, it's not a threat, but it could be an opportunity. You can't grow without change either.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's the way I try to talk about it is, everyone can change. Everybody can figure out how to get to work if there's road construction and you have to turn a different way. You might use GPS to get there faster, or you might just navigate, but everybody can do it. You can change your patterns. And so I try to talk with people around, you are change capable. You probably just don't like it. Like nobody really does.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So from like a change management perspective, I don't think AI is any different.
Yeah, true.
From a pace and like broad span of impact, it's absolutely different.
Yeah.
Which is where you get that, I think that fear component is, it's like, well, where is the safe space to go that won't be impacted by this? And I'm like, I don't know. Every aspect of your job is going to get touched by this at some point or another. And so that's where it gets really kind of hairy, but I think people can work through it.
One of the things that I've always thought about in terms of brand new technologies that are coming out is that there's a general thinking that this is going to take away from what we do, instead of like, this is just going to grow the pie and we're all going to do much better stuff that we enjoy doing. So sort of the, so in terms of, from an organizational perspective, going back to the immune system type of stuff, do you recommend like, hey, here are the 5 things or 2 things or 1 thing I would think about in terms of actually making this in practice? Because for all the way from like, what problems do you go after? How do you message this to the client, to the team? How do you have like a organization sort of ready for it, right? Like, how do you get the success word of, this is actually making because I feel like there's 2 sides to this, right? Some people get really excited about it, and there's some people who get really, it's the same coin, but it's just, they just look at it differently. There's fear and there's excitement. So how do you sort of tap into the excitement part of it and less on the fear?
Yeah. What I've seen be successful is over and over again is when you come into the initiative and running your pilot or whatever you're doing with the new tech, and you cultivate an evangelist who's on the team, right? And so where I've seen the most repeatable success is where you bring in that subject matter expert, the key influential person on the team early. Whether or not you feel like they're going to be a proponent or a detractor of the new thing, you bring them in as early as possible, like day 1, and get their input, help them co-create, help design the solution with them.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, they're the one that their team is going to swivel chair to ask how to do something anyway.
That's true.
And you'd rather have them be the one carrying the message to the team, but the cool new thing that now they don't have to do the gross part of the job anymore, and they're getting to spend more time doing the fun part. And look, you can too. That it just goes over a lot better than Amber from IT coming in being like, I've never done your job, but I know how you can make it better. So
that's a great point.
Cultivating those evangelists is a great in.
Yeah. So it's like the evangelists, the champions in each team, right? Yeah. Working with the champions and getting the message out and making them part of the solution as opposed to just plopping in something, definitely makes sense to me as well. That's sort of what worked for us, like in terms of how we, implement AI and stuff. One thing that I always get fascinated by is the AI wave that we're in right now. It's amazing that we're in the thick of it, right? Like, so there is a pace associated with that wave, right? And most of our industry is not used to this pace. Every day there's like a change. So in order for organizations to keep up with it, you have to embrace that pace a little bit, but you also have to align it with the cultural element of how the teams work. What change is too much change, right? Like, so how do you think about that? Like, so is there like a balance that you try to strike for in terms of culturally aligning the AI and what kind of tools you want to start with and then funnel to somewhere else? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. I think pace of change is what differentiates this tech revolution from all of the rest of them.
Yeah.
The way I think about it is trying to target almost team by team, problem by problem.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it does end up then being very organizational and broad-based, but if you start with one team, you kind of can learn from it and scale slowly. And the other factor is, this is going to require a lot of companies to have a culture shift.
Yep.
And that does not happen overnight. It's not going to happen by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And, just thinking through what we were going to be talking about, I was like, the questions around culture and whether or not it aligns with an initiative, right? So back to the do AI and do it now. If you're trying to run that initiative and you feel this friction of like, well, our culture doesn't support that. I'm like, okay, well, then you have to ask yourself, should we still do it? And if the answer is yes, then you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, so how do we shift our culture in order to support this? Which is a lot harder and it takes more time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the people side of the change really comes in. It's going to be climbing Everest if you don't have the culture to support it. It's going to just be a huge Herculean effort versus building that cultural alignment.
Yeah.
And then this is almost a byproduct of it, the ability to adapt and move quickly. And so it's in how you hire, it's in how you train, and slowly changing that over time.
I completely agree with what you're saying, right, in terms of alignment. And also, I feel like one of the things that's sort of intuitive for people with your sort of background that I don't think most AI tech companies get is what kind of use cases or what kind of problems you go after.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, you can eventually get an organization's culture to support any problem, right? It all needs to be driven by how do you introduce the change, right? So I feel like that's something that I've seen you guys do incredibly well in terms of like how you go after a problem statement and what kind of problem statements you want to go after to begin with. Yeah.
Well, that's another one where you start as close to it as you can possibly get, right? Like, yeah, I have really good partnerships with executives and directors and business line leads.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some of the most valuable problem discussions are with a person that's just like living it every day. And then you talk to 3 or 4 or 5 of those people, you find the commonalities. And then once you have that thread of like, okay, this is a pretty key problem,
right,
then you can start to do like put the business analyst hat on and, okay, what would be the potential ROI of automating this? Or if we could do 80%, what would that be? And then you can kind of build the business case for it. But
that's awesome.
It starts from getting to know the people and the work and what they hate about their work.
That's
like, what is the part nobody wants to do anymore? Okay, let's see if we can get rid of that.
Yeah. And so even the way you're articulating it, there is a ROI component to it that most folks who are doing AI today, to your point, they're just doing AI for the sake of it instead of defining what is it actually going to achieve? Like, what am I measuring as an outcome? Even though you sort of nonchalantly said it, I feel like that's an important part that most in the industry is still sort of catching up to.
Yeah, implementing AI is not a pass-fail grade, right? Like you have to kind of understand what you're trying to do, where your levels of success are.
Exactly.
That shows you where you lean in and where maybe the tech isn't ready or where you're culturally not ready. Like maybe the tech worked great, but nobody adopted it. Okay, that's something you got to chew on a little bit more. And so really trying to go into that initiative with what needle are we trying to move and what direction and how are we going to know if it moves?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It feels like I can have this conversation for hours, but like I want to end the conversation with from just macro, right? Like from organizational perspective, you not only like M3, you were also well connected in the industry across the board. from an organizational perspective, what are the key things you see from a macro organization standpoint that will say that these are the set of organizations that share this common traits that are going to be successful in this sort of wave, and the rest of them are going to lag behind? What do you think is those traits?
I mean, we kind of talked about it before. I think culture is a key component, and specifically because that can be such a buzzword, it's living out a people-first culture, right? So
Got it.
the companies that are making headlines about talking about we're going to eliminate X thousand number of jobs with AI, that's the exact opposite, I think, of what's going to be successful long-term, because you don't want to go work there if you know that you're on the chopping block as soon as like the next level of AI comes out and is able to do more complex work.
Yeah.
Where you want to work is a place that is helping you to level up your skills, helping you to level up your work and do the more fun stuff. So I think culture is really a base component of it. I think the other two are really a curious mindset in the people, being willing to experiment, being able to tolerate when it doesn't work the way you think it's going to. That experimental, like, scientist mindset, I think, is so key, because you have to be willing to say, it blew up, but we learned a lot.
Yeah.
And that's good. Right. So I think being able to have that organizationally as a mindset where you're rewarding experimentation, not just success. I think those are really two key components.
I like that. People first and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Thank you, Amber. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. You can subscribe to our show on YouTube or by following us on LinkedIn. And please consider giving us a rating or a review so it helps others to find our show. Visit StitchStudio.ai to learn more about our applied AI solution built for insurance. See you soon.